Well, welcome to the Duluth Art Institute Professional Development Series. This is a program that we put together to help artists have resources to learn some tools of the trade, some best practices, some cautionary tales, and everything in between. And I've reached out to a variety of artists, ranging from cartoonists, comic artists, animators, tattoo artists. And tonight we are going to be chatting with comic artist and cartoonist and illustrator and a little bit of everything, Dave Wheeler. I was going to read your bio, Dave, but I think you know your life a little better than me. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Welcome.
Happy to do it. Thank you for having me, Jesse. I appreciate you, man. I've been a working professional. I like to say just creative instead of creator or anything like that because I've done a little bit of everything. I've been working in comics just about 18 years now, 17, 18 years, something like that. Along the way there, I've also worked in the signage industries, advertising, graphic design, toy design, and professional wrestling industries, doing a little bit from columns A through Z. You've seen my logos on all kinds of wrestlers from AEW, New Japan, WWE, Ring of Honor, NXT, as well as a myriad of indies and whatnot around the country. I've had just recently this past year, some of the toys that I designed a few years ago are now hitting from Boss Fight Studios. So you see that in the Legends of Lucha Libre, Legends of Luchador waves. I think I screwed up the name. There's a lot of words in that one, but I
There
got to
it
work
is.
on some fantastic dudes there, which was great. I also got to work on the Labor and Kenya line, which is an indie comic, but also showcasing one of the first ever Afro-Puerto Rican superheroines in the comics industry, which is great. The creator of that also does a lot of outreach in Puerto Rico and helps support the arts down there, which is fantastic. I also run my own kid-friendly all ages imprint called Mindwave Comics that I've been running for about 15 years with my buddy Samir Barrett. Between the two of us, we've worked just about everywhere. Me on the comics industry side, him on the animation industry side of things. So we tell our stories about our characters, in the Misadventures of Wonder Boy, and the Bold Strikes, and Totem, and Cinder, and Mechanical, and you name it,
A whole
we've done
universe
it.
going.
Yeah, it's always fun. So yeah, a little bit of everything. On top of all that, I'm a dad, I'm a collector, I'm a YouTuber, so I do a little bit of everything.
And we'll
I've been
make
lucky to. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I said we'll make sure that we get your links and stuff in the description on the video and make sure everyone can check out what you're doing because you have a lot of cool stuff. I know you've got that YouTube show and your
I get around.
podcast and stuff, so you're staying busy. What's your website so people can check out your work?
DaveWonder.com. One of my nicknames I picked up along the way was Dave Wonder, and so I made that my YouTube persona. I made that my just kind of my name online. I'm working on getting my Instagram and well, not really Twitter anymore, but my Instagram handle switched over to that. But Blue Sky, I'm Dave Wonder. Patreon, I'm Dave Wonder. Kara, I'm Dave Wonder. So check me out on there.
All right. All right. Well, we'll get started here with some of your tips and tricks and tools of the trade. I just wanted to mention that this program is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board. We're really grateful for the resources they give us access to and allowing us to have great artists like you on our show. So let's get started with just can you tell us a little bit about we're talking about comic conventions specifically today. And I know that's something as someone who is familiar with that barrier of getting into shows, having merchandise to sell. Can you tell us a little bit about what comic conventions are, like how you got started in them, and just like what's the functionality of them? What make why are they important, and why do people really want to get involved?
For sure. So comic conventions are, conventions that are planned based around animation, comics, pop culture, etc. There are niche conventions for just about everything. I do a Doctor Who show every year. I do a couple anime shows, stuff like that. But the cool thing is, it's a conglomeration of people who are really passionate about very specific topics. Sometimes a little bit broader range. But for me, I've always viewed comic conventions and stuff as an opportunity to meet people. I started going to them when I was about 7 years old. My dad took me to them at the old Thunderbird Inn here in the cities for the MCBA back in the day. Went to a couple of those and got hooked. Got to meet a couple of my favorite comic artists that were there. One who would later on become my mentor when I went to school, which was crazy to think about. But for me as a working professional, it became a way of getting my product in the hands of fans, of new fans, and also being able to make those connections with new people as well as fellow creators.
Mhm.
Actually, Jesse, you and I met at a convention the very first time, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
and that was huge. I mean, the fun thing is we met talking about comics. I think it was you and Dale were running around with a book, if I recall
Yep.
correctly.
100%.
And then yeah, I mean, years later, how many times do we end up hanging out at shows, or we end up just shooting the breeze? We're just talking about wanting to talk about wrestling off stream sometime. So I mean, that's the fun thing is making friends. Like one of the things I always try to do at shows is make them more accessible. There's a lot of people who sometimes it'll be their first time tabling, and I'll just swing by, say hey, introduce myself, say if you got any questions, swing by. More than happy to help. Because when I started, it was a little different, it was a little
Mhm.
gatekeepery, with some of the folks who had been there, or just people kind of being sour. But for me, it was the thing of going out and trying to reinforce and make these very niche communities stronger, and also spread the love, spread the word about it. I've gotten a ton of my friends who aren't necessarily into comics just come out and out with me at shows. And that's a big thing, like all of a sudden they go, oh, I remember that. Oh, I used to have a tape of that. Oh, I used to collect that when I was a kid. Oh, like, and all of a sudden it's like this weird nostalgia bomb of you know bringing back something that made them happy. And the world needs more happiness in it. So that was a big thing with me. Is I always joke around that in like the job title for mine, because I say I'm a creative content creator, is I say I try to make the world suck less. So I try to make comics that are fun and bright and goofy and over the top. On my content, I try and reinforce positivity and kind of the joy of being like a collector and stuff like that. And at shows, I try and reinforce that no, this is a fun environment that you can go around, and it doesn't matter what you're into or who you are or whatnot. There's someone here that you can talk to and have a conversation and have that moment of an endorphin rush of just being happy again. So it's always a good time.
And I think it really touches on some core childhood memories, and you know how you look back at everything when you were younger and just everything seemed a little more brighter and colorful and a little more exciting. And I think that comic conventions is just a nice opportunity for people to escape for an afternoon and reconnect with kind of the basic material of what made them who they are. So I find that part aspect of it really fun, and it's great to see people enjoying it. There's nothing more fun than seeing someone having a genuinely really good time. You
Well,
could be tired, sleep deprived, but if you see
oh
someone just
God, yeah.
enjoying themselves, it's just great.
Well, and now the amazing thing is conventions are more plentiful than they've ever been. I always joke around and say half of me's from Texas, half of me's from the Iron. And now the fact that there's a couple shows up that way, we got now Excalibur Con, formerly Teeb Con, up in Duluth, and Range Fan Con up that way. It's great. Like being able, that was stuff that I dreamed about as a kid. That was that, and to see those communities now getting the opportunity to have that so much closer than the cities is fantastic. And just to see comic conventions popping up in every little nook and cranny across the country, across the world, really has been fun. It's been awesome to see because all of a sudden these communities that were really underserved before now all of a sudden have a place that they can come and hang out and just let it all out, which is great.
100%. Not every. It's surprising how some people like you look back, and I find myself, that being well traveled as a kid, I forget that sometimes people didn't have that privilege of, mom and dad being able to take a 3-hour trip or just fly across the country, and bringing these conventions into people's backyards, like RangeCon. That's just great. That's serving people that otherwise would have been completely forgotten about. So that's great. So I guess on the functionality side of things, every artist, has that thought of when they go to a convention and sees someone like yourself, like I saw you, and thinks, man, it'd be a lot of fun to be on the other side of the table and to
Sure.
be selling my art and doing what I love. Can you tell me a little bit about the basics of how would you reach out to a convention? How do you get involved? Like, what's like step one? If you're an artist, what do you start with?
My recommendation is usually you get that inkling when you are actually at a show. So the number one thing is don't be afraid to ask the creators there because all those creators had to apply, had to do something to be there on that side of the table. Usually they can get you a contact email or point you in the direction of the website or any number of those things. Um, for me, it's always been if if I see a new show, I'll check out their social media, I'll check out their web presence as far as website, YouTube channel, etc. Usually there's a contact somewhere on one of those. Usually, even if it's a general information contact, I'll reach out, and just say, "Hey, my name's Dave Wheeler. I'm a working comics professional. I've worked for XYZ. This is what I do. This is what I want to present. This is what I want, like this is what I want from the show." I've been very lucky over the years because I went probably 12 years, 10 years, something like that, of just grinding on stuff like that, really, really pushing, like contacting every promoter I could. Now I've made so many connections over my career of doing this. I get invited in as a guest. I'm on year 9, 8 or 9, something like that, of just being brought in, which is great because now people reach out to me and go, "Hey, man, would you want to do this show?" And of course, me being easily excitable, I'm jumping on that thing like a fat kid on a cupcake. I was the fat kid. I love the fat. Um, that's that's not meant as an insult to anybody. That's just is one of my favorite stupid phrases.
Well,
Um,
you're
but
excited about your after 9 or 10 years. I think that's a good testament to the fact that you're still excited about it. Like you haven't
oh, definitely.
grown fatigued by it or tired or exhausted or
I just finished quite literally Saturday was my 27th show for the year. So I get out there and I travel around. Granted, two of those I promoted myself here in the Twin Cities, but there were stretches of 6, 7 weeks where I was gone. Like I was gone on weekends. Thankfully, I have a very understanding partner in all this. And my kids are cool with it, and the wonders of video chat and stuff as a dad really comes in handy. I'm toning it back a little bit next year because there were a lot of first time shows and stuff that invited me in, and I gotta pull back a little bit because I gotta work on home a little bit. So
yeah, yeah, and
literally
you got
construction.
to keep the creativity flowing too.
Oh, definitely. That's something. Thankfully, I have in spades some days. So the
I
the fun thing is going to all these shows. There's so much inspiration. There's so many creators that I get to know and get to talk to, and it just to see people who are passionate about creating and putting in the work to do such a thing um, is inspiring to me. One of my very good friends, Mike Kingston from Headlock Comics, one of the nicest dudes I know. That dude works his butt off. Sorry, I was trying not to. But he
just didn't
works
lay the
his
parameters, but I appreciate your
yeah
sentiment.
he works his tail off, and he produces some amazing things, and it's really producing for him. One of his Vampiro Psychobilly Vampire Hunter book just got picked up for option, so like they're actually shopping it around now as a TV show, which
Oh,
is amazing. He's got a Kickstarter running right now called Saturday Night Sasquatch, which is about a wrestling promoter booking a Sasquatch. So that's awesome. Go check that out on Kickstarter. About 10 days left, just saying. Uh,
okay.
but at the time of this recording. But shout out to King, Mike Kingston, Headlock Comics, one of the hardest working dudes around, and genuinely an inspiring dude. So yeah.
Awesome. So going to the conventions is fun. I appreciate you sharing just some of the basics on getting involved with the conventions themselves. How did you get started? What was your first show where you were on the other side of the table where you asked or
I think my very first one was here. It was like a library show, and I had my little like skate zines and toy mags that I made.
right?
Um, like with my own comics. I mean, I did a lot of shows in college. Like I got around Fluke Mini Comics Festival down in Athens, Georgia. Still to this day remains one of my all-time favorite experiences. It was put on by two of my buddies, Patrick Dean and Rob, and I miss going down there. It's just hard to warrant going across the country for a one-day show, but it's
Yep.
genuinely one of my favorite experiences I ever had in my life. In that time, I did Dragon Con, Hero Con. Like I did the Southern Circuit, like as I always joke around because I was went to school in Savannah, Georgia. So I kind of tooled around, down south, Florida, South Carolina, even up the eastern seaboard up to SPX in Bethesda, Maryland,
Hmm.
and all the way back down. So yeah, I got around during then, and again, it was the thing of I was trying to figure myself out at that time. I was doing mini comics. I had The Misadventures of Wonder Boy #1, I think, at that time. I had a bunch of posters that I had drawn, and like I did pins and stickers, and thought it
Yeah.
was fun. I remember there was a button maker in the studio space in the building that was for my major, which was sequential art, comic books.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember being like, button maker.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So yeah, I went to no, no, no. It was one of the ka-chunk. Like it was one of the nice ones,
Oh,
right? Like you slide all the inserts in, and then just
it's
ka-chunk, and yeah. Oh my God, the most satisfying sound you will ever know as a goofy indie kid. But yeah, I fell in love with doing that and just trying to make stuff that was fun and upbeat and energetic and nostalgic. But yeah, I would say I did a ton of shows then, but like my first show out of school was coming up here, and I think I got home in like July, and I think it was September was FallCon up at the state fairgrounds
yeah.
here in the Twin Cities over in St. Paul. And I did that, and I brought what I did on a lot of the indie shows that I did, and ooh, it was a time, man. I was very lucky. I knew a couple creators there already who were former classmates and friends, so they had kind of gotten me in touch with. Again, I asked, and I got the
Yeah.
information and got in, and yeah, I had those little like grid walls that you could like connect with the little round connectors. And
Yep.
I made this whole storefront thing on my table. I had everything hanging up from it. And I got it all set up the night before, and I came in and it had collapsed.
Oh no.
So I reset it up. I figured I used zip ties on it. It was terrible. But I had fun, and the thing was, I made a little money. It's for me, it's like as like doing that, I never was like, oh my God, I need to make this much money. I need to do, like it was never about that. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna sell books and do drawings. We'll see how it goes. Like that
Yeah.
was my mentality
Yep.
all through school was like, let's just see how it goes. Because as long as I could make back like the
Date.
money I spent making the stuff and like gas money,
Yeah.
cool. Like, I was happy as a pig and you know what. But yeah, for me, it was always about creating. It was always about making stuff and getting it out there. But I think FalCon was probably my first show out of school. But I had an incredible learning experience down on the Southern Circuit. Like I said, again, doing SPX, doing mini comics festivals, doing Fluke, doing all those were super fun. I enjoyed the crap out of them, and again, it was a learning experience. I think I have pictures of one of my very first tables, which I should have sent you, but if I can put this up on my YouTube, I'll insert the image
Yeah,
here.
that'd be great. Yeah. I have
Uh,
images that you sent me. We'll drop some in on like a little slideshow thing.
oh, dope, right on. But yeah, I think that was probably my first show. Like I said, the my very first one was probably going to the library and being like, I got mini comics, I got zines, woo,
Buy my
and
stuff.
just trying to put them out. I remember I found out the copy code for the library that was near me. Sorry, Mrs. McAllister. Um, I uh, I I might have abused that privilege a little bit. Uh, Also, I feel ancient because I taught a class, God, last year, and someone was like, "What's a Xerox?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's like it's a copy machine." But it's just like
Yeah,
I'm
get a
like,
Xerox of
I'll be
that.
over here. I'm just gonna turn to dust. Cool. All right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna turn to dust.
It's
Fantastic.
like Kleenex and Band-Aids. It's
Oh God, yeah.
Xerox. It's a
Yep.
copy.
Who knew? But yeah.
Well, that's a good segue into, talking about some of your products and stuff like that. What I want to touch base on is let's assume from the point of view of an artist who, let's say the artist has like a handful of art prints, some buttons, like you said, maybe some stickers. They kind of made some Xeroxes, of their artwork, and they're kind of have a little bit of inventory. Maybe they've helped, been at like a little local farmers market. Maybe they did something here and there, but they want to really jump into one of these conventions and these comic conventions or pop culture conventions. What would you recommend for setting up? Like what kind of table do they need? What should they showcase?
So, so the cool thing is with farmers markets, with all that, like one of the things that's recommended is I will always recommend uh, a foldable, collapsible table so that you have one because there's a lot of conventions that will have tables and chairs and provide those. But again, farmers markets, craft fairs, a lot of those they'll require you to bring a table. You can usually get one for under $40. But if there are shows that they say usually will say like, hey, we provide you with a table, two chairs, etc. Um, my big thing is I have a pop-up banner. It's basically a window shade with a banner that you go and
Yep.
then you hook on a pole. It has my name. It has the one that I currently have has my character Wonder Boy on it. And it's kind of become. I feel weird saying iconic, but someone said that at the show this weekend. It's like, oh man, I see your poster. I know exactly where you're at. It's easy to see from across the room. Mine's bright purple. So yeah, it's eye catching. But the thing that I started doing is my old travel banner that I had for years and years. The artwork's kind of dated, and I started using actually these magnets here. Whoop. Let's see if I can get them. So just a little button magnets, right? So,
Oh,
they
yep,
can
yep.
snap off. I use this and I put my prints on that old banner. And I have actually when we show the pictures, you'll see it. And I just have a little like garage sale sign that says all prints $10, or I'll have my sketch commission sheet up there or whatnot. And it's become like another backdrop that I can use outside of the actual table surface, which is fun. Again, I have a little bit of the luxury of having backstock of old beaten up banners that I can do stuff with, but I like go to the dollar store and pick up some art easels or book stands. I highly recommend just looking around. Look at craft stores. Look at Michaels. Look at Joanne Fabrics. Look at Walgreens even. Sometimes you can find there'll be like picture holders or whatnot, where you can put up a piece of your artwork on it or whatnot. Something simple. My go-to that I used to use was I would cut up milk jugs when I was first starting out. I would actually cut an L in them and then cut it up so it'd be plastic, and I could throw something in the base of it. Usually I would throw like another book. But what I would do is you can put your book on it, and again, I was a cheap SOB, so when I was trying to figure out what I could do, that came to mind because I was like, I can always get milk jugs. Like those are easy to find.
Yep.
So, but use what you can. Cardboard. I used to make my book racks out of cardboard that I'd glue together, laminate them, and then I'd cut out the shapes. There's a website called Clear Displays that has absolutely amazing. It's wood and acrylic stands that are modular, so you can take them out. You can put them up, take them down. Again, when we show the pictures a little later on, I can point them out. Again, they run about $30, so do a couple shows, see what you like, see what you have for inventory,
Mhm.
and that kind of will warrant what comes from there. Also, talk to your local art stores, talk to your local craft stores and stuff, and ask them if they have any displays they want to throw out, or that they're getting rid of. I was lucky I worked at a Blick art supply that was merging with another Blick art store.
Oh,
Um, and so they're like, we have all this stuff that we need to throw out. And I'm just like, oh, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that. And they were just weird displays. Like I had one for years. It was a zip tone, or Zipatone rack. So you could fit one comic in each slot all the way up, and it fit
cool.
32. For some reason, I remember the number 32 so vividly. But
That's
what I would
great.
do is I would do four of each issue that I had, and it would go, and then on the front I had, floppy books, $5 each. And I had that, and then I had my little binder of prints, and that was my setup for a while, because I could throw it in the trunk of my car. It was easy. I didn't have a ton of inventory at that time. Now I have an album that I did artwork for, some educational graphic novels, some digest books from Oni Press, um, all my books and products, as well as now, hopefully soon, I will be getting some stock of the toys that I designed, so I'll have those on the table. And for that, I'm taking the old grid wall that was a travesty and I totally misused. But I'm gonna build a little wall up, and I'm gonna have peg hooks on it so that I can have them displayed like they're in a store. So I can have some figures that I designed sitting there to sell. So I've already been thinking that one through because I have a bunch of friends who run shops here in the cities. I work with Hot Comics and collectibles locally here in the cities, doing the social media and stuff. So kind of going, what do you have for this? What do you use for this? What do you? Oh, okay, that's what we used for that. And also just going, hey, do you want to get rid of any of that, or is there any stuff that you're not using? Because sometimes it's easier than throwing it in the trash because a lot of people are
Yeah.
more excited to be like, oh, you can get some use out of it, take it.
Yep.
Um, I had to resolder a foldable book rack that I used for years, but it had come loose, and so sorry, I think one of my buddies just came over upstairs because the dogs are circ upstairs. But I used that for years and years and years, and it finally gave up the ghost and fell apart even more. And I got my free 99 out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look on Facebook Marketplace, look on, Craigslist even, like just look around. There are ways to find options for making your stuff look better
Mhm.
out there. One
Yeah.
new thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. And part of it is also just looking at what other people are doing
Oh,
and
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's what is that? Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery or whatnot.
yep.
But one of the things I learned from one of my friends is actually this. So, oh, no, this way. This stack of tubs over here. I have one of those that houses about 90% of my con stuff that I bring with me. And what I started doing is I started bedding it into another one so I could flip it over on the table. And all of a sudden I had a two-tiered display system and I could put all my art on the little lip and it would hold it up perfectly. So I did that for a couple shows. It worked okay. But I didn't quite love it. It was huge. It took up a lot of space. So
Yeah, you got to experiment a little bit and see what works.
always.
And
Yeah, and the nice thing is if you have a collapsible table, you can set it up in your space, wherever you are. You can kind of do a dry run.
yep.
Every year around January or February, I'll take inventory of everything I have and kind of do a dry setup and kind of go, okay, does this work? Does that work? What is this? What is that?
Mhm.
And it gives me an opportunity to tinker and figure out different things to do.
Well, I know this is a showcase on your experience, but being on topic, I just have to share, especially with the folks listening, is I got a really good idea from he takes photos of his toys, these really, really good
Dave,
photographs.
that is Father's Figures.
Oh yes. Yep.
Yep. I was
So
about to use his given name.
I got an idea from him where when we were tabling at a convention where he had all of his stuff in this nice like plastic all set up in a nice plastic sleeve ready to go.
Yep.
And we looked at it because we had like a binder where you could flip through and pick out what you wanted,
Yep.
and then we would pull out and bag it up and stuff like that. But what we decided was we would actually grab one here. We decided that we were going to take his idea and just have a bunch of
Yeah. Pre-bagged.
already bagged, and we found like a backing board,
Yep.
and it ended up being like 60 cents for the backing board and the plastic per
Yep.
per one.
Yep. It makes a difference, man, and it's presentation.
It does. And my sales boosted just because there was less friction from having to wait for me to pull. So, they could just grab it and be like, I want this.
Yep.
Hey.
It works. I like that's been one of my I didn't do fan art for years and years and years. That's a story for off stream. But I had a bad experience. I had done a sketch for a charity organization. They were leftovers after the signing. I brought them back to my table and had a certain organization come by and go, "You can't have that on your table." I'm like, it's licensed through you to a charity. And meanwhile, there was a dude across from me with a friggin' wall of fan art and stuff. And
Yeah,
I was like, why are you coming after me?
I
I have
know.
one print. And since then, I've been lucky to work with Alamo Draft House and Imagine Theaters and stuff to do licensed prints.
Those are
Uh,
sick.
Now I'm doing more prints of luchadors and Japanese wrestlers. So, again, making weird contacts pays off. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so like a lot of times just having something kind of ready, because you got to think almost like a retailer too. Like sometimes it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe learn some of those best practices on how
for
people
sure.
think, how buyers and stuff like that think before they make a purchase. So you've seen it all, I'm sure. You were doing conventions before there was square readers, right?
Oh, God, yeah. PayPal, baby. That was about the best you could hope for card readers because you were paying for a machine that you had to have hooked up to a landline, to oh my God, it was a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of miss it because cash only was was really handy. Uh,
Yeah, I bring cash and we don't really go through it. Like I keep it
yeah.
on hand, but if people want to just tap, they can tap their phone right on my phone.
Yep, no, and that's I got the same thing now. That was the thing the other day. Someone was like, "Do you have this?" I'm like, "Yep, here you go." Gonna
Yeah.
make it as easy as possible to spend money at my table.
Yeah, pretty soon
Uh,
you just have to make eye contact and your contacts will connect and ching.
someday, also
Someday.
someday. But
Um,
yeah, no,
so
that was a game changer though for sure.
yeah, again, going back to like eliminating some of that friction. So anything you can do to just help you get the art that you love into the hands of people that love your art, I think is the best outcome. So
For sure.
closing things out before we do Q&A, and we're gonna go over this. Since this is a recorded kind of podcast, we're gonna close out the podcast at 6:15, and I'm gonna say goodbye and all that stuff. But so just I see two people in the chat right now. Hang tight, even though it sounds like it's ending. We'll have like a 5-second runoff, and then we'll start with the Q&A. So I just wanted to put that out there because I see someone entered late. But for this final little stretch here, can you tell me a little bit about the creative side of things? What are your like day-to-day tasks? Like, how do you get creative? What's your
Oh man.
workflow?
So the weird thing is, I always like to joke around that I work nights. I have a 2 and an 8-year-old. And so during the day, I'm daddy daycare, so I usually get to work during nap time. But usually for the hour and a half or so, I have then usually I come down and I prep a bunch of stuff, whether it be for the stream later that night or I send off files, do all my emails and everything. And then when my day starts, which is usually after I get them to bed, I'm down here. I'm very lucky. I have a space in the house that I can work in, and my big thing is well, I can't show you because it's literally on the other side of this wall. I have a whiteboard with a bunch of sticky notes of projects and where they're at.
Um,
And that's kind of become my thing. I also use Google Sheets a lot for managing projects and like managing to-do lists. Same thing with the Notes app. So if I'm traveling or whatnot, I have a going to-do list, shall we say. There's an expletive before it, but uh, it for me it's lists help a lot. A visual aid helps, so like having the spreadsheet, having that. Managing the show this past weekend, same thing. I had a list and it was color coded, so someone paid, cool. Whole thing was highlighted green. Graphic was done. This there was a yellow check mark. This, that, and the other thing. For me, it became uh, a way of organizing chaos in my head because my brain works like visual confetti. Once the studio is fully set up, you'll see it even more so. But that just kind of became my mentality of it keeps me on task. It also allows me to have a visual cue of where I'm at on what I'm doing and how I'm progressing on certain projects. When I'm doing books and stuff, I usually that whiteboard gets flipped around and I'll have all my thumbnails on it and I have a checkbox underneath each one so I can check it off when it's penciled, inked, lettered, colored. Now with digital, I moved over to doing that on a spreadsheet, but I still have the print offs that are up there, but
little
I have
hybrid.
it multi-platform. Yeah.
Yeah, like going back to using like everything from cash only and landline credit card readers all the way up to being able to touch phones to exchange money. You've
Yeah.
seen a lot of technology, and I imagine you have a nice hybrid workflow.
Yeah. It's weird. Like it's that thing of it's for me it's really entertaining because I still love using pen and ink. I do use digital a lot. I actually right below. I don't know if you can even see this. I have well this right here is my Cintiq. So I have that hooked up right in here. So I'm usually working and going back and forth
Yeah.
between things. But I also have a space over here where I have usually I have it cleared right now because I'm resetting up the studio. There's stuff everywhere. But I'll have everything set out. So I have my pens, I have my inks, I have, my pencils, my T square, my French curves and stuff because I still like using those. While at the same time, sometimes for speed and for formatting and stuff, I have to work digitally, which is fine because I like doing that as well. So,
All right. Yep. Speed is sometimes when a deadline hits, you just need what's fastest. So digital can be really nice for that, for sure.
sure.
Before we go into Q&A and sign off to our future podcast listeners, can you tell me about one experience or convention experience that stands out? Maybe you met a celebrity or a really cool creator. Can you go into storyteller mode and
I
this last 5 minutes and tell us about a cool experience?
I sure can. So I have one. Well, I have many stories that I could tell off air. But one of my favorite stories is the I call it the long game because I was pretty young and went to a convention. I want to say I was like 16, 17. I decided that I wanted to do this. I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be a comic creator, whatever you want to call it. And I made a little portfolio with a mini comic, and I went to this convention, and Neil Adams was there, the creator, one the legendary creator, legendary illustrator. We were just talking about the Superman Muhammad Ali facsimile edition that just came out.
He's my
Uh,
favorite.
dude was a legend. Um, I guess this will be my one curse for the show. He was also an asshole, uh, but a loving asshole. Okay, so it was the same one. It counts. It only counts as one. Anyways, so I went up and I was gonna get my Green Lantern, Green Arrow signed, and I asked him. I said, Mr. Adams, I want to be a comic creator. I have this little portfolio with me. Would you mind taking a look at it and giving me any advice? And he literally went flip. Said this is
Oh,
he he said this is shit and threw it in the garbage
oh no.
and kicked me out of line.
Oh.
And I was like, I was crestfallen. I was heartbroken, but at the same time, it was that thing of like, well, screw that dude. Like, no, I'm gonna make this happen now. Like, and I found out years later that apparently he did this to a lot of people. And like it was his way of kind of testing the waters of like, all right, is this kid gonna actually do it? Is he gonna, can he handle the criticism type thing? I didn't know that. Um, but I found out years later because I think it was Wizard World, the first Wizard World up here in Minneapolis, and the chat just popped up. That's neat. Sorry, for some odd reason the chat decided to show up. But yeah, it was the first Wizard World up here. I want to say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. And Neil was there. And I've learned if you go to a show, I always make small talk. Just say, "Hey, good morning. How you guys doing? You guys have a good night." Just because again, you're trying to build that community. You're trying to build up that rapport
Yeah, you
with
come
other
down the whole
creators.
line at every convention I've been with you. You kind of do a walkthrough where you just check in with everyone. It's great.
Yeah, because it's I always jokingly call it my con fam because it's a different part of family, it's literally the community that helped raise me, in this career path. I was very lucky to have supportive parents. I was also very lucky to have a lot of creative folks that I got to learn from.
Mhm.
But I walked in, made small talk with him. I said, "Well, if you want any kid-friendly, all ages comics, come on down. I'm Dave Wheeler. I'm just down the strip from you. Have a great day. Good luck." Walked to my table thinking I would never see him again because he sat in his palace of Neil where
Oh,
he just had art everywhere and like 8 tables around him. It was wild. Um,
his blue
uh,
shirt and his Diet Coke.
oh God, I'm pretty sure that dude's blood was 50% Diet Coke by the time he passed.
Yep.
R.I.P. Um, but it was one of those things that it reached what I came to know as cannibal hours for a show where everybody's kind of filtered out and basically the show eats itself by creators and vendors are just going to each other going, "Hey, what do you got? Hey, 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 hey." You're walking away from your table to go look at what everything else is going on. And here comes Neil. And I think like the funny thing is, if memory serves me right, he was walking around with another guest, and I think it was Gilbert Gottfried. For some odd reason, that sticks in my head. But they're walking around just laughing it up, and he comes by, he's like, "Hey, Dave," and I'm like, "Hi, Mr. Adams, how's it going?" We started talking, and again in the back of my head, I'm like, "Oh, dickhead that threw my stuff in the garbage. Like, all right, let's go, let's go. He's come down. He wants to talk. Let's go. Again, this keep in mind this is like a decade after the fact. Like it was stupid. Anyways, he comes up, and at that time I was selling trade paperbacks for $10, and he picks it up and he flips through it. Keep in mind this is my artwork. This is my writing. And I'm just like, all right. He looks through it and he goes, pretty good, kid. How much is this? I go, $20, sir. And he paid me $20, and I had a medium two-topping pizza from him
Oh my
that night as a vindication.
God.
Um, it's such a stupid story, and it is the pettiest crap. But I was lucky enough, I was able to tell him that story before he passed, and he just had this belly laugh about it. And I mean, I wouldn't call him a friend, but it was fun. We had that connection for a minute, and that was neat. Um,
Great.
yeah. So.
That's wonderful. Well, as I think I mentioned to the chat here that Neil Adams is hands down my favorite comic artist, maybe artist of all time. I'm super jealous you met him, but I'm super glad that he had an impact on you because you
One
vicariously,
way or the
yeah,
other.
yeah, it ended up coming around. You had an influence on me, so that's awesome to
Yeah,
hear that story. I didn't know that before. I've known you for a few years, so thanks for sharing that story.
yeah, no, that's why I went with Neil because I know that you're a fan.
Oh, great. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to our podcast audience from the future, and then we're going to get into Q&A. So don't go anywhere. I'm just going to say goodbye to them. This has been the Duluth Art Institute Professional Development Series. Thank you, Dave, for sharing your time with us. Before we go, can you tell me your website?
Yeah, go check out davewonder.com. Also check me out on YouTube and Twitch at Dave Wonder. So youtube.com/Dave Wonder, twitch.tv/Dave Wonder. You can find me on socials, Instagram, I'm the Dave Wheeler. Over on Kara, Blue Sky, and Patreon, I'm Dave Wonder. Most importantly, you can find me over at Extra Life, extra-life.org/participant/Dave Wonder. That link will be in the video description below, I guess, on my
Yeah, I can do
channel.
that.
Um, but I do a lot of fundraising for Gillette's Children's Hospital for children's cancer treatment and research through that. This year already, we've raised $10,000. My community over on YouTube that I lovingly call the COJ, the Consortium of Jackasses, because that's all we are at the end of the day is a group of jackasses talking about toys on the internet. Um, but yeah, I'm
All
gonna
right.
throw it. Is it okay if I throw in a little sign off in here too? Because then I can chop that in.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, again, this program is the professional development series. Minnesota State Arts Board grant really gives us a great opportunity to have guests like Dave in. And Dave, send them off.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for stopping on by. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, folks, remember, be good, be kind. Much love from Minnesota. Good night, everybody.